quiet village of Housemaid in Anambra, young Nkechi lived a simple but joyful life. Her early years were filled with the warmth of her mother, Amaka, a kind-hearted woman who would sing traditional Igbo lullabies while cradling Nkechi in her arms. Nkechi was the light of her parents' lives, especially her father, Udoka, who doted on her and dreamed of sending her to school one day. He often spoke of the future, of seeing Nkechi grow into a strong, educated woman who could read, write, and maybe even work in an office, a rare feat for girls from their village. But when Nkechi turned 5, her world began to unravel. Amaka became ill, and despite every herb, every prayer, and every effort Udoka made, she eventually passed away. Nkechi's last memory of her mother was her weak, reassuring smile as she held her hand, whispering for her to be strong. It was a lesson Nkechi would carry with her for years. After Amaka's death, Udoka tried to raise Nkechi alone, but the strain of work and household responsibilities weighed heavily on him. When Nkechi was 7, he remarried, hoping that his new wife, Adago, would help bring stability back to the family. But Adago was not the kind-hearted mother figure Udoka had hoped for. She was resentful of the love Udoka had shared with Amaka, and her attitude towards Nkechi was cold from the start. As time went on, Adago's disdain for Nkechi grew, and she soon began treating her like a servant. She assigned her difficult chores, forcing her to fetch water from distant wells, clean the entire house, and wash clothes in the hot sun. Adago made it clear that Nkechi was unwanted, refusing to let her attend school with other children her age. Each day, Nkechi watched from the window as her peers headed to school, their laughter ringing through the air as they talked about their lessons. In the evenings, Nkechi would pretend to write in the dirt with a stick, imagining herself learning letters and numbers. Udoka, weak and worn from both his work and the tension at home, would sometimes offer Nkechi a gentle word or a small gift, like a piece of yam or a coin. But Adago's sharp words silenced him more often than not, reminding him that Nkechi was her responsibility now and that he should leave her upbringing to her. Slowly, he distanced himself, unable to bear the conflict that arose whenever he tried to intervene. Nkechi endured the mistreatment for years, her spirit slowly dimming under Adago's harsh rule. By the time she turned 16, she had become a quiet, reserved girl, her laughter replaced with silence. But one day, after an argument over a broken clay pot that Adago claimed Nkechi had dropped intentionally, things reached a boiling point. Adago, filled with fury, slapped Nkechi and hurled insults at her, calling her a curse and a burden. Finally, she shouted, "You are no child of mine. Leave my house and never come back." Nkechi, hurt and humiliated, looked to her father, hoping he would step in, but Udoka was frail and silent, his eyes cast downward. With nothing but a small bundle of clothes and a few naira from her father, Nkechi left the only home she had ever known, walking away from her village and into an uncertain future. Alone and frightened, Nkechi took a crowded bus heading to Lagos, the city of lights and dreams, hoping it would offer her a fresh start. The journey was exhausting, filled with the smell of petrol and the hum of tired passengers. Nkechi slept in fits, her dreams haunted by images of her mother and the life she had left behind. When she finally arrived in Lagos, the vastness of the city overwhelmed her. She had heard stories of Lagos, but had never imagined its endless streets towering. As they spoke, she explained her situation in broken whispers. Moved by Nkechi's story, Auntie Beezy invited her to stay in a small room behind her shop and offered her a job as an assistant, helping to fry and sell the akara. For the first time in weeks, Nkechi felt a glimmer of hope. She worked hard, waking up before dawn to help Auntie Beezy prepare the akara and learning the business. Though life was still difficult, she was earning a small amount of money and began to save whatever she could. After 6 months, Nkechi expressed her desire to learn a trade, something she could build a future on. Auntie Beezy, understanding Nkechi's determination, introduced her to Madame Lizzie, a famous caterer in Surulere who was known for her excellent work and strict standards. Madame Lizzie was tough but fair, and she agreed to take Nkechi on as an apprentice. Nkechi began learning everything about catering, from selecting fresh ingredients at the market to cooking large quantities of food, arranging dishes beautifully, and managing clients' needs. She became skilled in preparing traditional Nigerian dishes like jollof rice, mwamwa, and soups that would make any guest's mouth water. The work was demanding, but Nkechi thrived, driven by her dream of owning a catering business someday. As the months turned into years, Nkechi became Madame Lizzie's trusted assistant. She had learned to handle stressful events, multitask, and serve large parties without breaking a sweat. Madame Lizzie grew fond of her, often calling her "my little chef" and promising that when she completed her training, she would help Nkechi start her own business. 3 years after Nkechi began her apprenticeship, just when she was about to complete her training, Madame Lizzie fell gravely ill. Nkechi stayed by her side, cooking meals and praying for her recovery, but the illness was swift and relentless. Madame Lizzie passed away within a month, leaving Nkechi devastated and without any settlement. Madame Lizzie's relatives took over her business, dismissing Nkechi without a penny, despite her years of service. Once again, Nkechi found herself adrift, with no home, no income, and her dreams crushed. She was heartbroken but refused to give up. She roamed the streets again, desperately looking for work, but her spirit was fading. Just as she was about to lose hope, Nkechi met Amara, a kind woman who had also known Madame Lizzie. Amara took pity on Nkechi, offering her a place to stay in her one-room apartment and helping her find odd jobs to make ends meet. One day, Amara introduced Nkechi to Mrs. Ogundil, a wealthy woman in Ikoyi who needed help with an upcoming family event. Seeing Nkechi's skill and dedication, Mrs. Ogundil hired her to cater the event, and Nkechi prepared each dish with utmost care. The event was a success, and Mrs. Ogundil, deeply impressed, invited Nkechi to work as the family's personal chef. Nkechi accepted gratefully, moving into a small room in the Ogundil household. The Ogundils treated her kindly, and Nkechi felt a sense of stability she hadn't experienced in years. Moved by Nkechi's story, Mrs. Ogundil made her an offer that would change her life. She would sponsor Nkechi's education. Nkechi, overwhelmed with gratitude, enrolled in night classes, balancing her studies with her work in the Ogundil kitchen. She was finally learning to read and write, a dream she had carried since her childhood. Meanwhile, Tund, the Ogundil's son, returned home from studying abroad. He was struck by Nkechi's quiet strength and gentle spirit. At first, they barely spoke, but over time, they grew close, sharing stories of their dreams and hardships. Tund admired Nkechi's resilience, and Nkechi found comfort in his kindness. After completing her studies, Nkechi earned her catering certification and began managing the Ogundil's events more formally. Her reputation grew, and she received offers to cater events for other families. Tund, who had fallen deeply in love with Nkechi, proposed to her one evening, promising her a future full of love and stability. She accepted with a heart full of joy. Their wedding was a grand affair, with the Ogundils treating her like one of their own. Shortly after, they moved abroad, where Nkechi started her own catering business, one that became widely recognized for its Nigerian flavors and dedication to quality.